Recording in progress. Yay, recording in progress. All right. So it's after 6, let's get started. All right, we're ready to go.
I would welcome everybody to join us at the table.
That's the first thing on the agenda is welcome.
Welcome us to the table, man.
Yes.
Planning board
You
not
can
here.
sit at the table.
Man.
You can sit wherever you want.
Yeah, you want to just go in there?
Yeah, come on
I
up.
can do that.
The,
Funny chair.
Yeah.
Yep. Slide this
So you don't have to turn
Everybody
around and walk.
sit at the table. All right, so first off, I just wanted to start by saying, thank you, especially if you're here, representing one of the other boards, advisory boards in the town. We're looking for as much help as we can get for, as we move through this process of rewriting zoning. I know zoning is a really exciting topic. I told someone the other day I was going to the New York State Zoning Federation conference and they looked at me like, why?
Yeah, well,
They were gonna say, they were like, awesome.
no, only another planning board person.
Yeah, only another plan.
That's cool,
Hi, Chris. So, we will be sending out, but I do want to go around and have everybody introduce themselves so I know what, I think I know everybody, but just make sure we have everybody. So Joy knows who's here and we have it for the minutes. There is a microphone right in the middle, so I think it should be picking up everything. But the way the way our plan is for this to work is, we've set up these special monthly meetings. We tried doing some of this in our regular meetings, but there's always so much other stuff going on in the regular meetings. Trying to do the zoning stuff in the regular meetings is just too much. So for the process while we're going through the rewrite, we set up these extra meetings. They're currently the first Thursday of the month, which is why we're here tonight. We thought they could be in here because, it shouldn't be a very large group, but if it gets to be too big of a group, we can certainly move into the courtroom. That's the nice thing about doing it on the first Thursday is there isn't a conflicting thing on the other side. I will be sending out agendas for these meetings. So if you're here from, say, the housing committee and there's nothing going to be on the agenda for housing, it's up to you. If you want to come, great. If you don't have to. Right, but what we really like to have is someone who can, sort of bring information from the various boards and take information back as we're having discussions. Now, I will tell you, housing was a bad example because if you saw the document that we're doing about the first phase of this, housing is on the list as one of the first things we're going to look at. So I would think that one would be interesting, but there might be other things, there might be things coming up on the topics that you don't necessarily have to be here for. So having said that, I think everybody knows me, Tony. I'm the chair of the planning board.
I'm Spring. I'm on the town board and I am the town rep on the conservation board, just as an FYI. And I'm backup for Dan on this board.
Got it.
I'm Craig Anderson. We know everybody here. So. Planning board.
John Kiefer on the planning board.
Marie McCray, Climate Smart Task Force.
Okay.
Janice Graham, Zoning Board.
Hi, Jan Dedici, Conservation Board.
Chris Morrissey, Planning Board. Doug Anzac, Agricultural Board.
Bill Griffin, Planning Board.
Gina Cassidy, Town Planner.
And I did hear from Martha that she's going to be coming to these meetings representing the housing committee, but she couldn't make it tonight. So
Forgot Brad.
and we got Brad. Who's on Zoom?
Somebody wants to be
Brad.
admitted to. Oh, Martha's here.
Well,
It's here. Oh,
Brad.
Martha, that's Zoom. Good.
Dryden Planning Board, hi.
Can I ask, is it Martha who? Robertson. Oh,
it is Martha.
Okay, great.
Did she come in?
She's in the ether.
Oh, there she is.
Oh,
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Great.
Hi, Martha. Welcome. We were just going around the room figuring out who was here. And I mentioned that you were gonna be representing the housing committee. So,
Yes,
Good.
thank you.
and we have Brad on there, okay. All right. So having said all that, the first thing on the agenda is the scope of the rewrite phase one. Now. Some people here probably haven't seen this. Planning board members should all have it. Let's see, I have a few copies here. Oh wait, they need, hold on, I got all messed up. There should be 2 pages.
So you
That should go
can
without-
email stuff, I don't want to.
There's the second page. There's the second.
There's nothing.
So the.
Okay, this is just the second page.
Yep, there should be
Second
2
page.
pages.
Right, but this is,
So here's another first page.
okay, we need 2 first pages.
There's another first page.
Okay, do you need a second page? Now you're okay too.
Here, Bill, you can have one that printed on 3 pages of that.
Oh, did you get
I
one?
do.
Do you
Is
still need
there,
one?
is there one more?
Yes. Right there. You need the first page or both?
I need both.
Okay.
No, already.
And there's the. Sorry, my finger messed up. Cause I thought of printing these just before I came down here because I'm like, oh, everybody has electronic, then I went, oh, no, they don't. So now that we know who is gonna be the representatives for each board, instead of sending things to entire, like the whole ag board or the whole conservation board, I will send just to those that are designated, but you will get the agendas. If there's any other documents that are being sent out, you will get those before the meetings moving forward. I apologize for not having them, and I know Martha, I already sent this document to Martha, so I know she has it. So anyway, so this is a proposal from Nan Stolzenberg, who the planning board would like to hire to help guide us through this. She's the one who wrote the audit that we just did, that I think most of you should have seen, right? So what we decided to do was, instead of trying to tackle all of zoning at once, is to break it up into chunks. And so this is just phase one. And phase one is going to be going through things like purpose statements and definitions. Sounds really exciting. Data centers and crypto regulations are on the list because we have a town moratorium on data centers, so that we knew we had to address that one fairly early on. Battery storage is another one that there's a group that wants to put a fairly large battery storage facility in the town, and we don't have any zoning that allows that, so that's why that's on the list. Housing related updates is the other one. And then, updating use tables and area bulk tables and Barna use regulations. And Article 13, which is the certain uses, which includes things like elder college and ADUs, that's part of housing, right? Is allowing that. And then incorporating use of the town's groundwater study where it can be. So that's kind of the first. And there's suggestions about use of conservation subdivisions as mandatory major subdivisions. So that's phase one, which actually there's quite a bit there, right? So I think that's gonna take some time. And then the rest of this is an expansion. That kind of breaks it out by with cost and what the various steps would be with kind of a timeline.
Okay.
We
We don't have this planning task, though.
Page 2.
I guess page 2, we have 3 over here. I have 1 and
Missing
2.
page 2.
Yeah, several.
1 and 3 are on one sheet.
Yeah.
3
2
is
is-
second sheet. It's not-
What is it? Okay.
It doesn't matter. Thank you.
You should have 3 pages, 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, do you have another two?
Get one more.
Yes.
Nope, I've got, that's three. Oh, I need two.
Oh, sorry,
I have three.
I don't have my glasses on.
Thank you.
I can't help that. All right. So. So then the other part of this is gonna be the various steps and cost, with some cost estimates and timeline. Which kind of gets us to where this is being done. I have it right here. This is somewhere right here. John, you had brought up at the last meeting some concerns about this document, and so Nan sent out a revised version. Do you have thoughts on, do you think it kind of address the concerns?
Did we get the
I
revised?
didn't see it.
I didn't see it.
When we got it?
You see it?
I was just looking for it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
This
that's-
is the
that's right.
revised version.
This is the revised version.
Yeah.
That's the revised version?
Yeah, it just didn't say the updated date on it.
The one I have says updated 3/5. Updated March 3rd.
Yeah, I think it's the same.
Tony, if I could just say a couple words
Yeah,
to
go
bring
ahead.
folks up to date on where we are with scope development for this project. As Tony mentioned, we got the audit report from Nan, which I thought was quite well done. He knows her business, and I think. So, here to read through our zoning, write some comments on it. So then for the planning board, we decided, as Tony said, to take it off sort of bites at a time and start off with a smaller piece that we thought we could run through the process and we can kind of learn how to do it. Something that we thought was fairly straightforward. And then get into some more complicated pieces for phase 2 and phase 3. So then the task for the planning board was to come up with a work scope for this first phase of work. And to help with that, I put together a document which we called a straw man. Back in December, I did that. And the planning board members looked through that and thought it was okay. At the last planning board meeting, which was a week ago today, I made a bit of a fuss about process, I guess, and where we are with Nan's proposal. It doesn't talk about the specifics that were contained in the straw man. She references the planning board's task list, which may or may not be the straw man. But it was a fairly highly detailed thing that we had, that the planning board went through and thought was okay. I have to say, I have never issued a contract for work without first writing a request for proposal. There isn't one for this. And the RFP is a place where, the owner tells the story of the project and lists all the things that, the owner wishes to get accomplished. And there's a lot of purposes for that. One, of course, it's put into the agreement that you must be signed with your service provider, but also for other folks to be able to look at it and read it. So, okay, you can look at it. That didn't happen. And so I made a bit of a big fuss a week ago over this thing that's going on that I was concerned about, but zoning is complicated, and I think we need to be very careful about how we proceed and make sure that we're documenting everything that we do and the thoughts that we have, so that folks can read it and either agree or disagree on where we're going. So anyway, last Saturday I sent an email to Tony and Ray expressing that concern. I also sent an email that if folks want to move ahead based on what we have here, I won't get in the way. Nan is a very talented person. I think she knows what we're looking for. I'm uncomfortable, but I'm not going to lay down in front of the train on this topic.
Better read it.
And actually, the one I have that says updated May 3rd is not the updated.
It's not.
The one we've all just been given.
Yes, it's not the updated one.
As is, isn't it?
This is the updated one, and I have the two, but the one that has in red updated May 3rd that was sent to me is not.
Would you
the
like me to make
updated
some
one.
copies of these?
Yes, if we can make some copies. I would appreciate it.
Do you mean March
I don't know if it's
1st?
time for a question, just, I can't understand where the granular stuff, over the years. I have memos, a long one from you, John, over the years that zoning is sent to planning. About changes that we have. Things that come up again and again in zoning, and I have, and I remember at one point you had a list. I don't know, where does that happen when we start getting things about signs and all of those different little things that have cropped up over the years? Where does that happen here?
When we go. So some of that'll come up in definitions,
Okay, which is good.
which is in this,
Yes.
but some of this won't come up until probably not this year.
Okay,
Does that make
so,
sense?
but yeah, definitions are a big thing,
Yeah,
you know.
Because we're
sure.
gonna tackle definitions, I think, in this bit.
Yeah, okay, because that is.
But as far
often-
as actual policy, some of those policies, probably.
Okay.
Won't get to.
Okay,
Money. But I doubt it.
okay, but that's
There's a lot
it's on
to
your
do on.
future agenda at
Yeah,
some
that's
point.
why
Yeah,
it's important.
definitions will be a good start because we come up against.
I know
against that.
ag had a lot of.
A lot of times.
For definitions. too,
Okay.
And conservation. Too. But the biggest thing is to follow state law. That's the biggest.
Yeah, we do not,
the biggest
town law
thing.
does not match state law. And that's often a problem with
Yeah.
us.
And that was one big,
Yeah,
That was
that's-
one of the things, yeah.
one big goal. that
That's good
overtakes
because that
everything.
would make things much less complicated in many.
Right.
Because
And
there's a,
that should be defined as scope of work.
Tony, if I can,
Yes,
Sorry.
go ahead.
That's nothing.
got my
Sorry.
electronic hand up, yeah. If I'm looking at, the document says in, that she would come to the various committees, but also that, public and stakeholder outreach meetings to discuss drafted language, that's in August. Are you, it's a little hard to hear, is the conversation about when does the public get involved? Because I see that on this list in August. And then a public hearing in late September or early October.
Right.
Is that included on your document? Are those?
It is. It is, yes.
That's all.
Yeah, I don't see any of that here. Do you see that here? Okay, we all have different documents. It's not here at all.
We don't have the updates one.
Okay, right, even though it's that.
I'm sorry, I don't know what,
Right.
I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
Page 3 and
But we'll see, she's gonna make another copy of what.
It should be page 3 should have the.
Page 3. third section.
But this is all.
Third section down.
Okay, there you go. Public consumer outreach, to discuss drafted language. I guess this was what it's interesting.
I have a hard time. Figuring out which one of these, because I got multiple versions and they were sent to me. At different times. This one.
Yeah, I see, yeah. And this is what she's talking about, Martha's talking.
No, the one that says up to the one that says red updated March 3 is the last one I have.
The one I'm looking at is dated February 17th.
Okay. Yeah, that's the original one.
That's
That's
the
before
original.
that, before the update came out.
But you're saying the update is not the update.
Well, that's what Gina said,
Gina
but
doesn't think it is,
but I think it is.
yeah,
This is the updated one.
she was looking at a red line version of it.
Yeah, I don't think that, Gina, I think the one you had is not the updated one.
This is Sue in here.
Sorry. Yeah.
We're comfortable that the language is in there referencing
So,
project plan.
I haven't read it. I had not seen it until just now,
Okay.
and I haven't read through it. Craig just pointed out a sentence in here that we're like, Craig about. If you look at page 2,
For March, yeah.
under planning task, the first sentence is planning board to detail and finalize list of zoning topics and general recommendations to be amended and addressed in phase one. So it sounds like Nan is saying to us, which I think we should have done in the first place anyway,
Right.
was to be much more specific about what it is that we hope to accomplish. And again, one of the things that does is it lets us share that with all of you, so you can read it, see, well, here's what those guys are up to. My thing isn't there, or isn't, or whatever. And now it sounds like she's saying, yes, we need that. And if we do that, I'm comfortable.
Yeah, she references it as a project plan rather than RFP, but you're good with that?
I won't argue, but
Mhm.
yeah, I just think that.
Well, at least it's an answer.
Well, she added the section, sorry. She added the section that talks about what's going on subsequent to signing the contract, which wasn't in the old one. No, those are the old ones. Those are the old
That's
ones.
the old.
Is it old ones?
Yes,
Oh, you can't use it.
Yeah.
All right,
those are the old ones.
these subscribe paper.
Yes, let me,
Have you seen this?
do you have a way to?
Send it to the printer. Send it to the printer, I can send it to the printer. Send it to me.
Yep, I'll send it to you. You can send it to print it. So we make sure that everybody has the most recent one. This is dated March. Well, I received it March 5th yesterday. Has on it, you know, when you first open it, has right on it, says updated March 3rd, I believe. And Martha, I will send you this one right now.
Thank you. Did I hear, I think it's John talking about how unusual it is to do something like this without an RFP? Was that?
That was John, yeah.
Okay, I guess I would point out that the town has already spent whatever it spent on Nan's time to actually review the zoning as it is. And familiar, you know, obviously she's gotten deeply into the weeds. So I think the housing committee, if I can speak for the housing committee, and Gina, you correct me if I'm misstating this, felt that it seemed pretty natural to go ahead with her with the next phase because in a sense, you've already invested a good amount of time of hers to understand what's in the existing document.
That's right, and that really was our thinking was that, you know, if we put out an RFP, then somebody's gonna have to come up to speed on everything that she did. If we hired somebody, if we put on an RFP and hired somebody else, that person would have to come up to speed on everything that she did.
So you'd have to pay for that, and I think if folks were not satisfied with her first deliverable, then that would, of course, be the right thing to do. But if people are reasonably satisfied with the audit that she's done, that seems like a worthwhile investment to capitalize on.
Yeah, Martha, I wasn't thinking we were gonna go out and take proposals from other consultants. The RFP, the intent was just to find of all the things she listed in her audit, which things are in phase one.
I see, okay, I get it, okay.
Is
Thank
the
you.
audit on the town website?
It is. Yes, I'd have to think about where it is, but yes. I
Right,
can
so
get it.
it's
Yes,
it's
we can
available
get-
to,
If you haven't received it. we
I
can
have
get it.
not,
Okay.
have you? No, okay, so I think again, none,
I
maybe
thought we
not.
sent it out to all the boards.
It's possible, but maybe it
All right,
went by me,
I'll,
but I don't remember it coming.
Okay. Yeah, we can get it out.
Okay,
That's easy
great.
enough to get out.
That'd
Um,
be interesting, because we did meet with her zoning, but it was a
Right.
while ago. It feels like.
And so the audit has a lot of really good stuff in it, you know, about what,
Great,
Uh,
okay.
what
I'd
we
be
should
very
tackle,
interested to
right?
see it.
But. So anyway, John, the additions in the latest version, now that I think we're all working from the same version. Were those first two sections. were updated. Which is the March, April, May work. Not a whole lot more detail, but. I don't know, what do we think? The question is, do we have enough, is this enough for us to recommend to the town board? To move forward and do a professional services contract with her to take on this project? Or do we think we need more? Not hearing anything.
Still reading it.
Yeah.
You reading it?
Awesome.
You're gonna defer to.
Yeah, I wish I had read the audit, I would know better, but I did remember, feeling as if she actually listened in that one meeting we had, and also feeling that it's so about time to do this. that, Stopping the process to find someone else doesn't appeal to me unless there's something really.
Well, and I
not
guess
good with her. Yeah.
the main thing is, and I don't think when I say, is this enough? I'm not saying that we should go look for somebody
Right,
else.
okay.
What I'm saying is this enough of a scope to present to the town board? That they can create the contract, right? And then, yes, we're gonna have to do a lot of work with her initially to really define the nitty gritty of what we're doing in this space. So this is more of what I would call, more of a rough scope.
Yeah.
Of the topic areas that we're gonna hit. But then the first part of that, once she's hired, or once the contract is in place, is gonna be going through the nitty gritty detail of looking at, all of the things that she's gonna look at, and then, of course, she's gonna come back. With input from all of us, come back with recommended actual code changes, actual written code changes. And then we would of course review those would go, we'd start going before the public with those. And those kind of things, so it's. So that's kind of where we are. Thank you, so now.
Just a movie question.
Sure.
So I apologize for asking you the questions, but
Here are those new copies if anybody needs them, but
I'm thinking for your feedback very heavily. And when I read the scope of work, it's clear to me that we're not hiring her as a PM, right, for this.
no,
So-
actually, the planning board is the PM. voted on this.
So,
Okay.
it's just one. And please correct me if I'm wrong, my interpretation would be is part of closing the loop and closing that gap would be that it's not just the scope that's completed, but a true project plan with those responsibilities identified. Because that's where there is likely to be a tripping hazard around what would the expectations were for her versus us. Am I wrong on that?
Oh, I think you're spot on. Those are things that you would put in an RFP.
Correct. So I don't know if that would help close the gap if we, as. But we made a commitment that a project plan will get developed with clear roles and responsibilities that align with the scope of what's in here for her. I don't know if that, it's kind of doing it a little bit back. A little bit of card flip.
Correct. Yeah. And, I'm okay with that. I have great respect for Nan. I think she understands what we're after. I'm comfortable because it's undefined, the things that you just said, who's responsible for what pieces are undefined, the specific scope elements aren't written down, and in all of my experience buying work, I have never issued an agreement without first nailing all that stuff down so that all the players can see what it is that we're thinking about.
Well, I've seen it, but oftentimes what happens is the people doing the hiring are assuming that the person they're hiring is gonna do stuff that is really not what we've hired them to do, so I almost wonder if it's more making sure it's defined that what this committee's doing from that project management role, make sure that we're not thinking she's doing things that, you know, if you have a really weak RFP.
Well, it wasn't intended to be an RFP, but yeah.
No, I
But it's
was
still a scope of work.
blind to that. I'm just wondering if that'll help close the gap. But that's no smoke feed.
Well, she does say the deliver, so in that second bullet, April and May. The deliverable from this effort will be a detailed zoning amendment scope of work for phase one with recommendations for direction and policy on each topic.
That also references the strongman project plans.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah,
I guess I'm stuck on the first sentence, you know, 'cause when I brought it up last week, everybody said, no, she should do that. So,
Craig, I'm sorry, you're stuck on which.
the first sentence where the planning board detailed finalize the list of zoning topics and general
yes, okay,
recommendations to
good.
be amended and addressed. And I brought that up last week and everybody said, no, this is her job. Is that something we want to tackle? And she's given us a lot of suggestions, but I don't know if that's. The term list that she gave us and handed back to her.
Oh,
Mix these things.
I think we're the client. We need to define what it is that we want.
Because I'm not opposed to doing it, but when I brought it up last week, it was like, no, we want fresh eyes on something, so. Am I mistaken, or was I misunderstood?
I don't think that was this issue, that's what it was more than it just wasn't defined.
Defined, okay, but I thought us doing it was
Right.
the no, it was more than let her do it and bring it back to us. But I mean, we can come up with a list, it's not that hard.
Smart items 1 through 12, isn't that the list of things?
That, to me, that is the list, yeah.
It is the list, but this is she wants a detailed finalized list of topics, I mean, but. Just hand it back to her. It's not really defined.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
The housing committee went through her audit report and made comments and suggestions and agreed with this and agreed with that and disagreed and sent that to, I believe,
Yeah.
to all of you.
Yeah,
Is
we
that-
have it.
Is that a process that the planning board has done yet? Has the board itself done that yet?
Well, we've read it. I mean, I've read it. I'm assuming other people have read it.
Yeah, we've read it.
And we will use it. You know, my thought was that we would use those comments when we got into actually working with her to rewrite the code.
Right, it seems to me maybe a step of going as a group, going through her audit and saying, well, we agree with this, we'd like her to update it as she has said here, or we want her, here's something that's missing. I mean, is that kind of Craig, is that what you're talking about in a way?
That's sort of where my head was going.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
if you as a group went through it,
Yep, I agree.
then
But-
that might give you the list you want.
Yeah, I think that is, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. Because we have it from housing. I think we have one from.
The ag.
We have ag. Yeah, we have a couple that came back, so.
Yeah, I don't
You
think
sent
I
one,
ever
didn't
saw it either, yeah.
I really thought that
You got the ongoing list.
So that's when the public will.
Yeah, I have that list. But
You got
I
Ben's
thought that's,
list in there.
you
What?
do that during the rewrite so that the public can weigh in on the feedback.
That will happen. There is the public input part, right? But defining the list can come from, we can use the audit and comments that we receive back to kind of drive the list, right? But we agree with, like, Mark, we agree with this, we don't agree with that, those kind of things. I think that works. I think my feeling is we can move ahead with this to get the contract, to get the professional services contract going, but that's our next step, right? That's our next meeting, is going through this and defining that list a little tighter. Does that make sense? Or do you think different?
If I can recommend, go through it together as a board first, otherwise you're gonna spend a lot of time on her clock.
No, I'm not, and she wouldn't be at this next meeting. It would be the
Right,
next
right.
meeting like this. That's what I mean, yes,
Right, okay.
yes.
And by the way,
Not with her, no, not with her.
okay, it took the housing committee 2 and a fraction of meetings to go through.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
And that was just the housing portion of it.
That was just the housing portion of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think what we can do, so I guess, I don't know where everybody is. I guess my question is, do we need to do more with this document to get the contract going or not? If we do, then we're gonna have to defer that, and we're not gonna be able to recommend to the town board for their next cycle. We'll have to go back to Nan and have her do more stuff before we can put this forward to the town board. I guess, is there enough here to move it forward, I guess is my question. What do you think?
Well, I'm a little confused, the title of this is scope of work and budget for first phase. And then in the April and May section, halfway through, it says deliverable from this effort will be a detailed zoning amendment scope of work for phase 1.
Right,
So
which is gonna come from the
Those
more
are two
detailed
separate-
list we give to her.
this is the scope of work, and then that'll be a scope of work.
It'll be more detailed,
Okay,
going into specific sections and all of that, right? So it'll be. At least that's the way I understand it. Chris, what are your
So,
thoughts?
well, from our last meeting, we wanted the feedback, to get her just a little more detailed, and just to clarify. Go to the town board, but I thought everything was thought everyone was on the same kind of like,
Right,
once we got the little definitions of what she was going to do or what we were going
Right.
to do.
right.
Then it was gonna be fine to go to the board, just
yeah.
to get it going, and then we'd have the meetings afterwards to really
Right.
dig into the actual
Right.
stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right. John?
Let's go with the flow.
I mean, I get John's point, but,
Mhm.
I don't know if that's like later, I think it's like later.
Well, I think we're asking the town board to trust us. Because it's not stated what we're setting out to do here. As long as the first thing we do is get this list of the specific things we want to get done. And distribute it so everybody can.
Everybody has it, right?
That's fine.
Do they have the kind of general topics we're gonna be looking at,
Who does
town
who?
board?
Yes. Yeah. And they'll have this. And they've also seen the audit report. too.
Of course.
Yeah.
So would you need more on the town board? More information?
So I've got I'm kind of got this dual thing going on in my head, whereas like, I believe there is a lot of trust. I believe that the work with Nan so far has been really good. I think that there's a desire to move things forward and get this in and not slow down. I'm also in the back of my mind thinking of some lessons learned from what John's talking about. Where I've seen contractors get tripped up because there were expectations. Unclear expectations around who was supposed to do what. And I think the and not necessarily the fault of the contractor. But where those was hiring them thinks that they're gonna do X, Y, and Z, and they thought we were gonna do X, Y, and Z, and so having that clarified, I think would be helpful. It's nice, I mean, an RFP is like the big document, you can put it all in, but I would actually ask John if he has other thoughts on maybe how we document that. The only other way I know how to approach it is to develop a living project plan where you include roles, responsibilities, and things like that, which could be done on the side of this so that it doesn't slow the getting the contract in place, but I haven't done that many of them for the town, so I don't want to misspeak on the state government approach versus private. Or else I'll look at him as who I know is an expert on that kind of gig.
Brad, any thoughts? Yes, ma'am.
He's talking, but he's muted.
He's muted.
He might be muted. It might not know he's muted.
He's gonna-
Brad, are you there?
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just listening in, and it sounds like a lot of what is being discussed makes a lot of sense. I mean, yeah, it'd be great if the town board gives us the time to finish up and continue, well, not finish up, but continue with Nan. I'm thinking about the scope and making sure she has all the information she needs to proceed. And come back to, I mean, she's already come back to us and we're still reviewing, of course, but yeah, continuing with her and just making sure she has all the information so she can serve us best.
Great.
I think you should put more detail in it. Even if it's if it's what you're talking, yeah, I mean, I'm okay with giving it to the board, but
It's not necessarily what we're hiring her to do, it's what is it we're saying we're gonna do. on the other end.
It's like Article 3, align the New York law, mobile home law. Who's doing it? Are we doing it? It doesn't say. Like, who's doing it? So I think some clarity in there would be interesting. Same with housing, data centers. Is she doing it? I mean, she's not doing it.
I think in that first little section, it says planning board to detail and finalize the list.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But we
This
don't.
will be for submittal of contract. This list includes all these things. So she's got $125 down here. I'm not sure what she's doing in this. Am I reading it wrong? It looks like the plan, she's saying, here's what I understand the planning board list will include.
Right, I think the $125 is 1 hour, so I'm assuming that's for her to read what we send her.
Okay,
That's what I'm assuming that is.
okay, so that is, so the first box is what you all were just talking about. It's that you actually do have to come up with that list
And she's gonna review it.
Yeah.
as the first step.
Yep. And then she goes and starts using these other pieces, and then that's when she starts, meeting with us and coming up with that and coming back with that finalized detailed scope of work. That's that April, May piece, but it's gonna be based on the more detailed list that we give her.
A lot of
Yeah.
So she's gonna review the more final detail in March, and then she's gonna deliver a plan to the planning board.
That's my understanding, that's the way I read it. So what's the fate?
Well, who's doing what stuff? Obviously.
I'm losing, I'm losing, I just don't know. What you mean by who's doing what, I think it defines
It
right here.
defines,
who's
it
doing what.
defines it, I get,
Yeah.
I just thought she was doing more than.
Yeah.
that, So,
Do we want her to do more?
do we have time to do it? I mean, you're looking at probably 3 meetings
To define the list?
to go over everything that's. If we're gonna go over everything again. And discuss it. I mean, it took housing two full meetings to do. To just go over the housing.
Tony,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand better, the scope that we gave her to do and she came back with, and we already had our meeting with her, a few months ago now. She's not technically doing a zoning rewrite. She's making her best observations for us to guide us. So we're not asking her to do a zoning rewrite per se. I guess I'm wondering, do we need to just sit down and have her comments right next to the zoning law and kind of go through it, just kind of item by item, and determine if there are any holes or what we want to incorporate from her recommendations? It sounds like it's just some working sessions for us as the planning board.
Right.
Because she wasn't charged with rewriting the zoning, of course. She's making,
In the first, she
Recommendation.
was not, but that's what this part is about, is rewriting, is rewriting it.
right. So she's continuing to act as a consultant for us, and we just need to make sure we're using her time wisely.
Okay. So you're suggesting we send it back to her, Craig?
No, I suggest we do the work.
Okay.
It sounds like that's what we want
Okay.
to do, so
All
we
right.
do the work, we just have to find the time to do it.
All right.
So,
So,
Yeah, I agree with Craig.
yeah, all right, so I'm gonna move that we forward this document to the town hall, or to the town hall, we're in the town hall, to the town board. Recommending that they move forward with a professional services contract to engage her in the zoning rewrite.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion?
I actually have a question about what
Yeah.
Brad said. I read it as she is actually putting, drafting the document, the new document. In the second box there,
Yes, she is.
She is, yeah.
okay, it's.
But what we have to do is give her a more detailed list of what exactly we want to be in
Right.
scope. But yeah, she is gonna draft. That's the second box. She is gonna draft that.
Right. Okay, at the end of the day, she's actually the one writing it.
Correct,
She's putting into words your.
correct.
I was commenting on her first
Yeah.
scope of work, her first phase one
Yeah.
scope of work.
Yeah. Okay,
But I have one question on that, and I know that our next items on the agenda are battery storage and data centers, but how much of that, and I'm sorry if it's been discussed and I missed last month's meeting, but how much of those two hot topics have we asked her to address, if at all?
they are, both are in the list of phase one. So they will be addressed in phase one.
There's a whole section on it.
Yep,
And
Okay.
since you don't have an existing law on that, she's gonna develop that from scratch, right? Based on the policy direction you give her.
correct. Well, and that's why that's the next topic on here, is that's one of the things we're working on, is
Right.
to determine what the policy direction is for those two items, right? But yes, she would be writing the code for that. Now, she has some examples, like for the battery storage, they sent us some example zoning code from some other places, right, that have it, so we have some other things to look, and I'm sure she has lots of things she can look at. So I don't know that she would be building it completely from scratch, but but yes, that's the idea. We're gonna set the policy direction and then she would actually write the code.
Right, right.
All right. So we have a motion that's been seconded. All in favor?
Wait, I have a question
Oh,
first, and it may be just.
Sorry.
The way I'm reading it, it seems to me that the first box there, with the $125. That's prior to a contract going to the town board, because that's what it says in the last sentence. Recommendations for contracting with town board. So it doesn't go to the town board until that first box is completed. Would that be two separate contracts, one to pay the $125 and then one to pay? Or would the $125 be rolled in? It just seems a little.
I have to think that's just a rate. It's not, she's gonna spend 1 hour flat.
No, that's what you're saying. I take on that as she's saying that after this contract is signed and this group says we've reviewed everything, she's gonna take an hour to review the more detailed list you guys have all been talking about. And then she's going to then move to the next box, which is to develop a plan to bring to the planning board on how to do what she received in the first box.
Okay.
Does that sound like I'm reading it right, or?
I just don't think she's expecting us to present this to the town board for approval of a contract. I think the way I'm reading it is that she's.
How about this interpretation? This paragraph is describing work that she's already done this month in the revision,
I think that-
setting this document out in front of us to make the decision.
I
It
think
is
it
March.
is. I think it is. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's my
I'm just
take.
reading it a different way.
I would agree. All right, any more questions? Any more conversation?
Well, I'm confused. You want to send it to the town board for their information or for them to adopt this?
For them to adopt it and approve a professional services contract to engage her in the work.
Okay, then my next question is, do I vote?
No, actually, it's just the planning board to vote.
Okay, great, thanks.
Because the town board charged us with doing this, so that's the primary thing that we're doing. Okay. Sorry. So planning board members, all in favor?
Right.
Okay, we have one and opposed
I'll abstain.
and abstaining. Okay, so for Joy's benefit, it's 5 yeses and 1 abstention. John abstained. So that passes. So this is gonna go to the town board. We'll pass it on with the resolution. So they should be able to take it up at one of the meetings coming up. And then hopefully we'll get a contract in place. But what that means is our next meeting is gonna be really discussion about making sure that we have everything defined about what we wanna cover. At least take a first stab at having everything that we want to have covered or spent, and it's gonna be a heavy discussion on housing, because that's one of the things that's in here. I don't think we're gonna need to look at too much at some of the other topics, because I think they're pretty straightforward, but it's gonna be very heavily focused on housing.
So with housing, we all made suggestions.
Mhm.
So everybody could read them at one time.
Yeah.
and That was helpful, so I
Yeah.
think we should probably do the same.
Yeah.
Get them out there, we have a deadline.
And so. Having the,
And it could be just as simple as say, fix it, you know?
yeah,
So
yeah.
It doesn't have to make suggestions, just.
So after this meeting, I'll make sure that we send out to everybody who's involved. I'll send out the report again. Right, so, because I
The
know some
audit.
people don't have it. 'cause you
Yeah.
don't have it,
Yeah.
actually. So we'll send out the report again. I'll send out this scope of work document, so you have it in this format. And then, I can also send out the commented. The feedback we've gotten so far, where some of the boards have, like housing, for example, you know, they spent. So I don't think housing has much to do, they've already done that, they've already given us their thoughts on it. But I can send this out, and that way, if there's other boards that haven't done that and would like to. They can do that. But like I said, housing is gonna be one of the first things we're looking at, so it's good that housing has done that piece and gotten it back to us, because we will have that to look at, but I'll make sure that you all have that. So that when we get together next month, we can really just, hopefully we can just go through it pretty quickly and. Yes,
I'm gonna ask an annoying question.
Hmm.
I think everyone here has been given town board email addresses, correct?
we don't,
No,
Okay, well, if you weren't, you're going to. So
I've heard we were going to get them, I haven't gotten
okay.
them.
We've asked for them in
Yeah.
the past, and there was always never enough room.
No, I was just wondering, because I'd be happy to volunteer to help put a team site together or something, so I really could make the edits on the same document.
Oh, that would be nice, yeah,
Mhm.
but you're right, yeah, we don't all have town.
I'll
email
ask about
addresses.
that, because my understanding is you were all getting them. so-
I heard that several months ago, that we were all
Yes.
getting them, yes, but we haven't, so.
I'll look into that.
Yes, thank you. But yes, that would be nice to have a central place where we could be editing one document, that would be very handy.
It would be handy to edit on top of the housing one. Comment.
Yeah, I think the
section.
housing comments were really good, I thought housing did a great job going through it.
Send me the documents, I'll try to set up the site and see
Yeah, okay.
if you guys can help me with it.
So I will send out to everybody here. And anybody else that has identified themselves as being a liaison to this group. I think everybody. That has identified themselves is here. But so that you all have all the documents. And then, but we'll also get them in a centralized site, because, you know, I hate having to look through email. I use the town website, you know, for our planning stuff, you know, because they put all the documents for planning. I much prefer getting them off the website than having to search through my email to find them.
Yeah.
So so that's the other thing too, is one of the things we're planning on doing early in this process is having somewhere, probably a section on the town, website. Where we can put all these documents related to this rewrite. So that, you know, we'll have them in one place, whether it's a team site or something else on the website.
I'll see
you know,
if I can't.
Whatever,
Great.
because I just think that would be a whole lot easier.
Tony,
Yes,
if it's hosted on the town site, is it a public document? Or is it password protected?
no, if it's on the town site, it's a public document, so that's why we need to be a little, you know, some of the stuff we want to circulate, some of this, you know, some of the stuff can be on the town website. Well, I think most of this is public information, right?
Sure, but as an internal document, it might not be a great idea to have,
Right,
you know, your
Yeah.
thinking out there in public before you've actually.
that's
kicked it
true.
Around.
I would think a working document would be like in a SharePoint site where it's password protected or something. But then once we have the document, that could be posted on the
Right, yeah, absolutely.
website, yep, I
And
think
did
that's,
you say that the Ag Board has also submitted comments?
it may have been the conservation, I can't, one of the other boards came back with something, I can't think which one, well, I'll
We
find
did.
it.
Okay, thanks.
February last year.
That's
A
right.
year ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I know Ag did too.
You did a little bit, yes, mostly Evan.
Yeah.
Evan and Kim, I think.
Yeah,
If we set up that SharePoint site, we should put all that stuff in there.
yes, exactly right, because I have this stuff all spread through my email, and it's just, you know, trying to find it when I want it can be a real problem. Anyway, all right. So that's good for scope of what's coming up next. Battery storage.
Tony, I wanted to say one more thing about, in a broad sense, the overall effort to update dredge zoning. And I'm reflecting on what happened in Caroline, where it got really, really fuzzy, and there was a lot of misinformation going around, and people got very upset about that. People will be concerned that we're making zoning more complicated, that we're adding regulations. And that's not the intent here. I think it's useful to read, and Nan wrote it down right on the front page of her proposal. The first one was preserve the rural character of Dryden. The next one, create a regulatory environment that supports more diversity of housing types. That's loosening the restrictions, not tightening them down. That's allowing more uses in the zones that we have. The next one's an important one. Ensure each restriction, allowance, and requirement in zoning and subdivision laws serves a desired and meaningful purpose. So we're trying to make zoning clearer. I think we're trying to make it less restrictive and allow more uses. We're trying to allow more diversity and development types through the town. I think these are not controversial things for folks who are worried about government over controlling things. And that's what was going on in Caroline, that there were people who were really upset that things were going to happen, that were going to limit what they could do with their property. The intent here, I think, is to make it so folks can do more things with their property. And I just wanted to say that up front because I know that there are going to be people out in Dryden who are thinking about Caroline and what happened there. And we need to get in front of them. We need to be really clear about what it is that we're trying to accomplish
I agree.
and get the word out.
The big difference though is that there was no zoning in Caroline and they were just instituting it for the first time.
Oh, I know that, yeah.
Yeah, so the concerns were way different, I think, than what will happen here.
Right.
I think it's valid though to have public sessions sooner than later so that people feel like they're providing input in the process, not at the end of it.
That's absolutely right.
It also, but you're right, it certainly never hurts to be clear
Mhm.
and have it out in public as advertised as possible. What you just said.
Right.
Which was great.
So it sounds like there should be a commitment from this committee that it's written in a way that's very readable to everyone without too much lingo, or if there's a lot of lingo that it's easily clarified.
Well, that's that's why definitions is one of them that you're looking at, right?
And towards that, can I just ask, what's the battery storage?
Utility level battery storage. These are, think of a field of shipping container sized battery units that are used for utility, to store utility power when power is being produced and then.
Okay, or at the commercial site? This would be something regulating it at the commercial site, or is there something about regulating how those battery storage would be incorporated into homes?
No, this is utility level. So these are, think of it like
The fire
a
hazard.
like a substation, like a substation or bigger with.
Yeah, you're thinking big explosion. Storage. Right, I mean, that's why you're concerned about it,
Is
right?
that if it lights on fire?
Yeah.
You can't just put it out. Basically, the fire department is told to stand back because you just can't throw water on an electric fire.
Right.
Well, it's the current, and it has to do with technology, right? A lot of the current utility level storage, battery storage facilities are based on lithium ion batteries, similar to what's in a EV, an electric car, right? Electric vehicle. Those batteries, when they catch fire, are very difficult to put out.
Right,
They say don't,
and they've
just
caused
stand back.
house fires with the little bicycles.
Right. So the whole reason it's on here is currently under our zoning, and sorry, we're kind of sidetracking here, but the whole reason it's on the list is that there is a commitment, or there's a what is it? New York State wants to have a certain amount of battery storage available in the state by 2030. And there's a whole bunch of projects that were, but now they're being pulled back, but the our zoning currently, like you can't put one in Dryden because it's not covered on our zoning, and if it's not in zoning, you can't do it, right? So right now, you can't put one of these facilities. And these are multi-acre facilities, right? So these aren't like little, like you need a pretty big space to put one of these things. And there is actually a one proposed for over between Etna Road and Lower Creek Road.
Whitney Road.
Behind 4-H acres, back up in there.
And that's in the woods, isn't it?
Well, no, there's a big field out there.
Okay.
It's the other sides of the woods, yes, but anyway,
Can we backtrack a little bit?
yeah, sure.
Is that all right? And that answers some of the questions, but now with the comprehensive plan, we had a website.
Yeah.
Something we should think about with zoning, because this is gonna be going on for like,
Well, I don't know if we
40
need a
years.
whole, I don't know if we need a whole separate website, but we could, my thought was that we could have a section, so we could have a section on the town website.
is there enough room, is there enough room there?
Great page.
Good.
Yeah. I think there is, yeah.
And it'd be easy to find.
I can talk with Cassie and just verify.
It'd be easy to find on the homepage and all that.
They just created the new website and I think it's Drupal and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think there's
Big
plenty of,
Problem creating.
yeah. So I think it's it's a section, so the, like there's the projects under the review section, right, where we're putting all the projects under review. I think that we have a section on the town website that is zoning rewrite. Is my thought. I don't know if we want to go through the expense of setting up a whole nother website.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'm
Like
just
we did
asking the
with-
question, but
yeah,
that was helpful for a lot of people, and it's
Yeah.
also helpful for us.
Yes, it is.
Because after a while, it got enormous.
But yes, I think that's one of the tasks we need to do is set up a web presence, and it is listed here as, I think, some recommendations about a website.
Yeah.
Yeah, advanced website update, advice on
Website.
website updates and all that.
When I'm talking current projects, so.
Correct, yeah.
But you can also have a button there where people can click it and automatically
Yep,
That would
create
be,
an emails that they can send to the
Yep,
this
yep,
team and things
yep.
like that.
that would be good. So anyway, that's why battery storage is on here, is because there is a proposed facility and New York State would like to do these. But we need to decide whether we can do them in Dryden or not. And so to that end, John sent out some notes about
on the fire department.
fire department, our conversation with the fire department.
Want me to talk about that?
Yep, if you could,
Okay, we're done with this, right?
yes.
All right, I'm gonna sign off then, if that's,
Yep.
all right.
Thank you, Marco.
Bye, Martha.
Thank you, Martha.
you.
No, nothing, I've been talking to myself,
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Yep, so the New York Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, which was a 2019 law here in New York State. One of the recommendations, which I think I've legislated, was to have 1,500 megawatts of energy storage by this year. Falling way short on that. So these are big utility projects. There's pretty much been nothing done. And I've been following there's an organization called the New York State Independent System Operator, which operates the competitive marketplace for electricity and also controls the transmission system. And they maintain a queue of project requests for people who want to connect to the transmission system here in New York State. And I look at that to see, well, what's out there. So if you have a big solar project that you want to hook up to the transmission system, like the big Yellow Barn project up in Groton and Lansing, I guess, that's on that list, and all the battery storage applications, but the big ones are on the list. There's not much on the list. So there are 5 projects that have been approved, 20 megawatts apiece. They're fairly old, but this isn't happening for whatever reason. I've seen literally hundreds of projects that have shown up on the list and then been withdrawn. I don't know why. It could be that the communities don't want them. So anyway, this is something that the climate leadership is calling for that isn't happening here in New York State. Currently, it's still left up to local government to regulate these. So the state hasn't decided that they need to take over this. Big solar. Where they created a group that does site plan approval of solar stuff. So anyway, and as we talked about, the lithium technology that's being used is volatile. And it's something that you read about and get scared about. And we talked about this at our meeting last month and decided that one of our first steps would be to talk to the fire department chiefs and find out what they thought about it. So Tony and Ray and I met with Mark Bell and Jason Jagger. And talked
Mason,
Mason.
Jack.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and we spent an hour and a half or so getting their reflections and recommendations on how they would view having batteries here in Dryden. One of the things we talked about was the project over on Caswell Road. There was a solar project proposed on Caswell Road that included 10 megawatts of battery storage. And even though Dryden doesn't have a battery storage element in zoning, the powers to be noted that someplace in the solar package, it mentions the word battery, and decided that as long as the batteries were not an auxiliary use, what's the word for that?
I think it's auxiliary use.
Yeah, okay.
Auxiliary use.
As long as it was auxiliary to the solar, then it was okay to have any.
Right.
But we don't have any guidelines or regulations. The fire chiefs weren't happy about the way that was approached by NYSERDA, who was championing that project. It got canceled, the whole thing. It's not on the table anymore, but they talked about things like access to the batteries, that if they do catch on fire, they're way off the road and there was no commitment to maintain the road. And there were examples like that. So a couple things stuck in my mind from the meeting. One is that given that batteries can accompany solar and that we don't say anything about them here in Dryden, we probably should address that and say something about it. And then I wrote some minutes up from the meeting on things that the fire chief said that they would like to see. One of them was the governor put together a group of experts on the topic of batteries a little over a year ago. And they put together guidelines on things that should go into the code on batteries. So one of them was that if there's going to be batteries in New York, there needs to be a central response agency so that, as Spring noted, when they catch on fire, the local fire department's task is basically to try and keep the surrounding containers from getting so hot that they catch on fire too. Not try to put the fire out. That there be a central group that is dispatchable in 15 minutes and is on site in 4 hours that would come out and deal with the problem. And there were several examples like that of things that the state needs to put in place before any of this battery stuff can happen.
But has not yet. The state
No
has
start
not
on it.
moved on that.
Yep, no start on that.
Yeah, it was interesting. They had one of these battery companies. I think it was because of maybe Caldwell Road. Came in and talked about the fires, and they also went and they offered to do presentations with the fire chiefs or the whole fire departments. Because they said, look, what we tell you is don't even come down the road. Like, we don't want you to try to put the fires out. These things are built in these casings that have chemicals in them that put the fire out themselves. Someone explained to me it has something to do with it pulls the oxygen away, so the fires go out because of oxygen, lack of oxygen. But they said one of the things is they don't want the fire departments to try to go inside the fences. They don't want them to try to put the fires out. They just want to stand back and they put themselves.
Just make sure it doesn't spread.
Make sure it doesn't spread outside the fence. But I personally find this a really difficult topic because there's all sorts of red flags for me. I asked about, is there things going to leach into the water streams? What are all these other impacts? At the same time, we want solar, we want wind, we want renewable, and
Right.
that won't work without,
Yeah.
at least in the current tech. By the time they build these things, they'll probably have solved the problem, right?
Well, and that's one of the things we can do in the zoning is we can define things like setbacks and containment of water, right? And all of those kind of things could be defined.
I mean, has Germany set out some good zoning? You can just steal Germany's zoning?
Well, there's, like I said, this battery company that's looking at the one site. Sent us some examples, some various example zoning. And I'm expecting, that's the other thing is, I'm expecting Nan to know something about this too, because she's. You know, I'm sure she has lots of resources to get it, so I think, but the general policy, what we have to set in this is the general policy direction, which. You know, do we want these things in the town or not? And. You know, I happen to be a proponent of green energy, and I think we should allow them. The question is, how can we allow them? And in a way that is safe, and you know, because there's a lot of new battery technology coming out, and a lot of the newer battery technologies are a lot less of a fire risk than lithium ion, you know, the traditional, what we've seen as lithium ion batteries. There's actually a new lithium battery that is supposed to be like, it doesn't have anywhere near the fire risk that the current lithium ions have. And then there's things like flow batteries and all sorts of, you know, flow batteries are filled with liquid. So they're like, they don't catch fire at all. But they're also much bigger. You need a lot more space for the same capacity, right? So anyway, and that was one of the things I think that, you know, the fire chiefs, their concern is what do we do? And what do we, you know, because if the response time is 4 hours, they're the ones that are on site for those 4 hours, right? From the central agency, if it's 4 hours, they're the ones that are there. And so I thought it was a good conversation, actually.
Yeah, the minutes were good, thank you.
Yeah.
The chiefs were not impressed with NYSERDA.
No, they were not.
No. Is there airborne toxin? Are there airborne?
Well,
toxins?
that's the other
That's-
concern.
It sounds to me
That was
like
the
you're
big
at the
thing.
perimeter, but what are you doing there? What's?
Well, that's the other piece of it, right?
Yeah.
So you're containing the water, you're containing all that, but you're still releasing
Yeah.
stuff into the air.
In the
Yes,
atmosphere.
there's no question. So I think, I don't know how far we need to go with this tonight, and the main thing was to just go over the fire. Did you have more that you wanted to say about what the fire chief said to say?
No, I think we should make sure that everybody here gets a chance to read the minutes, and also, the agenda shows the site plan that's being proposed and also has some images of some big battery facilities that are already built, most of them are out west. But it's good background information.
So some of that may not have gotten out to other than us.
Yeah, I just
So
sent it to
so
planning board.
I will get it out to everybody as well. I got a whole bunch of stuff to send you all.
Okay,
You're gonna have a lot of,
work.
A lot of-
you're gonna have a lot of light reading.
They do,
Good subject lines.
they do push things through like that. Is there opportunity to utilize that? Because they put these boxes out every 50 feet or something, but you're basically taking over a farm field, right? And this might sound corny, so I'm sorry it's being recorded, but I can't help but think it's like, let's say this does go through, can we put things in there to say, you know, but we're gonna put butterfly bushes around these things, and we're gonna use the land, if it's kind of what becomes a land bank in a way, to
With
benefit
batteries,
the
it's,
animals or
yeah,
other
yeah.
things.
you can't, so unlike solar farms, you can do a lot of sort of coexistent stuff, right? Like where you have like. They have sheep,
Wildlife
they have sheep
corridor.
going around, they have wildlife corridors, they do all that stuff. When you're talking about a battery storage facility. Not really conducive to that kind of thing, you're basically gonna have a kind of a big warehouse kind of thing. Not gonna be a warehouse, it's gonna be you think of shipping containers, stacked shipping containers. Right, it's, now, one of the things we talked about, and one of the things the fire chief agreed to is, you know, if we're gonna do the regulations is. We should say things like, how close can the containers be to each other, right? How much distance has to be between each one? And, you know, you could probably do things in between them, but then the question becomes, how do you contain the water, right? And so it's, if there's a fire, so then there's,
Water if there's.
so if you think about
I don't think
the.
they put water on it because it's an electrical fire.
But you'd be using water to cool the surroundings.
Yeah. you'd be-
Oh, the
Container
cooling, okay,
containers.
yeah.
And
And
so,
also try and knock down the aerial
right,
combustion byproducts.
right. So so you could have water. And the best example I can use, if you look at the way like a lot of oil and gasoline tanker systems are designed,
Mhm.
they have sort of things around them, so if they have a spill, it kind of stays in one place, right? It's kind of that kind of thing.
Containment systems.
So that would mean impermeable surface.
It would be an impermeable surface, right?
So you'd be taking an ag field and turning it into a big impermeable surface with water well, except every time there's rainwater, you have to also deal with that.
Yeah, so, yeah,
They
But
talked
it's-
about some sort of stormwater and
Yeah. there'd be stormwater management and all that
one
stuff.
of the recommendations. It wouldn't be for stormwater, ituld be mostly for.
Well, you will,
Toxins
it'll
and
be
things.
from any water, rainwater, you have
Well,
large.
and you have to think about, I mean, the area they're thinking about right now is not, I mean, it's not, I suppose. Maybe it could be turned into an agricultural field, but right now it's
Yeah,
not being used for anything.
Well, no, I wasn't
But,
thinking
yeah,
on that
yeah.
part of it, I was thinking that it's a large, you're basically you're talking about a large parking lot filled with storage
Essentially,
containers.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, that's not good.
A very large parking.
How many acres?
20,
20 acres.
200 containers.
couple hundred containers.
Couple hundred containers.
So, and
I did have a
Yes.
couple questions, why it's still
Okay.
fresh in your mind.
Yeah.
Was they talked about 24/7 access, 365. Now, were they just talking, like with solar, they were just talking about. The inverters, getting to the inverters. So what are, when they say. Access, what are they talking about? The perimeter, the whole perimeter of the facility, or are they talking about?
We're talking about access to the facilities, the way I understood it, but which means like, cause I believe the way the facility is set up, you've got the actual. Battery storage, right? But then you're gonna have like a sort of a transformer substation area,
Mhm.
right?
So just access to that.
That's what I'm thinking, but. I
Yeah,
don't
we
know.
asked that when they were at the town board and they were like, yeah, it's basically. If you need to do a repair or go in or
Yeah.
something like that.
In the
it's-
winter.
It's just they need.
I was just trying to figure out plowing, but what if they talk
mean-
about 24/7 access? I'm
From
like,
the pictures that were in there, it looks like they have a perimeter road and various connecting.
that's what I was wondering, the plowing all year.
Well, and that's the other thing is, right, from a fire department standpoint, those roads need to be, those access.
Well, that's why when we talked to Mark. I
Even though there's nobody
wonder-
there,
I wonder what
right?
Mark said about
That-
it, when he meant 24/7, is that what he's talking about?
That's what he's talking about, yeah. Is they need, so if there's access roads, those roads need to be cleared so that like in
Around
the
the
winter, they
fencing,
need to be cleared so
outside
they
the
can get
fencing.
there, yeah.
But inside maybe too, though.
Well, they did,
Yeah,
and
the
they
response.
talked about like, there's lots of ways they could do that, there's Knox boxes and that kind of stuff, but they need
Well,
keys,
But
but.
now
yeah.
you created a whole nother stormwater issue with.
Right.
You're plowing 20
Yeah,
acres of
yeah,
snow.
yeah.
Where you're putting that, and you've got a whole nother site plan. Where you think parking. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it becomes another
I know,
question.
And just, I would think that for the snow plowing, they would have to have someone specifically trained to plow around those units,
I don't think,
You just
I think they're-
hiring an outside
I think
contractor.
they're pretty stout.
I don't think they're gonna, I don't think they're gonna plow inside,
They were pretty
in
clear that
between
we
the
don't.
units.
They would work
Yeah.
hard for inside.
No.
I'm thinking the other response team, so what? If you got 2 feet of snow on the ground and they have to go inside.
It's not quite as close
They
to melt.
just let it burn.
They're gonna let it burn, that's what I was
That's all
thinking.
I said, he just let it
It
burn.
has to burn it out, yeah.
So, so one of the things we have to do, and we'll talk about it as we move forward with this is, this will be one of the topics in phase one is what's our policy direction for this and, so that's, I don't think we're gonna decide that tonight, right? But that's kind of where we are. Was there other things you want to? Okay.
Just an introduction, I think. to
Yeah,
it.
I think that's what it was. And then, data centers, crypto AI. To bring people up to speed on what we're talking about here is there was a town moratorium, there was a person who wanted to bring a crypto facility into the town. The town was unsure of how to deal with it, so they put a moratorium. So there's currently a moratorium on data centers in large crypto, crypto and data centers, right? And so they asked the town, or they asked the planning board to, you know, address this from a zoning perspective and really answer the question of, you know, are these something we, you know, are these kind of facilities that we want in Dryden? If so, what, you know, how should they be looked at, right, and all those kind of things. The thing that makes it a little complicated, I mean, if you're talking about crypto, you know, a lot of us have the feeling of, you know, crypto, the energy it uses it for not much benefit. It's like, it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. But the other thing to think about is that there's all sorts of a data center that can be used for crypto can, you know, is the same kind of data center that's used for other things, right? And so you have regular data centers like cloud storage, like you think about Amazon has these big warehouse size, huge warehouse size buildings that are data centers. And then there's AI. AI is exploding, and AI actually uses the exact same hardware as crypto, right? So it's all they're using these, you know, high-end GPU processors and all that stuff. So and they do AI that, you know, requires a whole lot of energy, just like crypto does. So in our last discussion on this, I think we kind of came to the point of saying that our policy direction that we were going to recommend was we would allow these data centers in the town of Dryden, but they could be no more than 5,000 square feet, and they had to be in the light industrial zone, which we don't have a whole lot of light industrial zones in Dryden. The primary one is right there by NYSEG. However, then somebody brought up, well, what if somebody wants to build 4 of those, or 5 of those, or 6 of those,
Or 20.
or 20 of
Daisy
those?
tank challenge.
Well, it's very rare.
No, and actually, what's really funny is after I heard that, and I don't, was it you that brought it up? Spring brought it up.
Sorry.
No, it's a
It's
good
a
question.
valid question.
It's a valid question, and after it was brought up, I actually saw a 60 Minutes piece on what's happening to a town in Virginia where they're building, and these are more than 5,000 square feet. These are massive. This county in Virginia, I think, is it Virginia? I think it's Virginia, has more data centers than any place else in the world. And these things are huge.
It's in Ashburn, Virginia.
Is that, yeah, these things are monstrous. And they were talking to people who live now within sight of the, you know, they bought these properties that were, you know, out of the way, and now they're within sight of these things. It's not that they're overly ugly or anything, but they're these big monster warehouse looking buildings.
There's noise too.
And there's noise, and they use a huge amount of power.
Which is my thought, so where's all the power come from? Like, I mean, why is Dryden attractive to, do we have a surplus of power here?
No, but we have a power line, like.
Yeah.
You know, and so in some areas, then the power costs go through the roof because now your residents are competing with these server farms for power. So now you've got people's power bills have gone up 700% or more because they're competing with.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that happened in this area in Virginia is they had to build power lines to bring power into where all these things were. So now people now have houses that are like underneath these power lines, right, and stuff. So I think it's something to think about. So I think we just need to, when setting a policy direction, I think, you know, one of the things we talked about, and this is one of the questions I have for Nan, is it may not be about square footage. It may be more about power draw. And I've never seen a zoning law that says you can't build a building that draws more than X amount of power, right?
And they're trying to get rid of, there's like horror stories about these things.
No, I know.
So.
Yeah.
So one other thing that needs to be considered is if you follow. Oh, I guess it's Microsoft's trying to build, I think it's Microsoft trying to build it. They've got a permit to build in Wisconsin. And it's 20 megawatts of power they're gonna use. And so now they just got their own state EPA to lower the standards to put 250 diesel generators in. So we haven't even talked about backup power.
There, well, the other thing about this is there are places that they are running. Well, there's one over on Seneca Lake, right? They're running a gas power plant.
Yeah.
Just to power a crypto facility.
But that Microsoft, they jump through all the hoops, they're buying 32 megawatts of power from Canada, hydropower. You know, so they fit in all of this, and all of a sudden, they just threw this. Oh, we gotta have backup in, and they said, and they said it's gonna be like, it's all green diesel, so it's gonna be biodiesel and low sulfur diesel, you know, and it's like, it never ends.
I think I
Once you
would
let
be
'em in,
the
they'll leave
first
all
to
back door.
organize the protest
Mhm.
if you end up allowing this in your zoning.
Mhm.
Well-
I'll just put it, you're talking about being open about things. I just thought I'd let you know.
You're gonna protest.
You wanna
Are
have
you gonna-
protests.
Are you gonna put a sign out there, yard?
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think the position. I think the position of the planning board, at least as I heard it so far, and I'm sure people will chime in and correct me if I'm wrong, but that. You know, because there are other legitimate uses for data centers. I don't know how far, you know, I think we need to make sure that we're doing this in a way that we're not preventing things that we want by keeping out the things that we don't want, right? So I think, you know, we basically were saying that, you know, like a small data center or AI facility in an industrial area is not necessarily a bad thing, but I think we do need to control, I think you're right, how many of them can be there. I think we need to think about, that's why I'd love to see something where we're talking about power draw.
I don't think you can limit what it's used for. I mean, it's simply about.
Correct, yeah, I mean, a data center is a data center,
Environment,
right?
it's a
Yeah,
data center. It
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
matter what they're using it for.
That's right.
So we have another town board member here, maybe we should ask the question, because I've asked Dan a couple times, how's the town board feel about this? I mean, we can make all the recommendations in the
Yeah.
world, but when it goes to you guys. Would you just say no to a small scale, you know, when we're talking 5,000 feet? Would you just say no to it?
My first question would be can you limit how many of them you put in? I mean,
Sure.
I mean, you could write
Yeah.
it so that there could only be one per,
Like the,
This
like
period of
the
time.
Yeah,
board
you could-
law was
you
that
can
way.
So here's the thing, if you said you could only have one per 5 square miles, just as a sake of argument. With the amount of light industrial we have in the town, it's really gonna limit us to one.
well,
facility.
and there's a way, so if that's what, if you wanna limit it, that's the way to do it, you know?
Industrial.
Until we change the border to light industrial. right?
Yeah, you could, but you could do it that way by,
Yeah.
you know, not to stop the daisy
Yes,
chaining of
yes.
this stuff.
And that's not unheard of. Yeah, I mean, even with, like, for example, when we were talking about short-term rental law in zoning, right? I know Hawaii, parts of Hawaii, they have limits on the number of short-term rentals that can be in a certain area. And once they get to that point, nobody else gets a permit to do it, right? And
Yeah.
it's
That's a growing trend across the
yeah,
country.
it is. So I mean, so limiting in that way, saying there can be only so many per
Yeah.
an area
Can,
is certainly something that has been done in zoning,
But what
right?
about just saying no?
I don't think any.
Thank
I
you.
remember when we talked about it, I don't think any place has outright banned. Any of
Yes,
this
it has.
anywhere.
There
Oh,
are,
yeah.
No, I mean data centers.
No,
no, some places have outright.
Oh, they
banned
have,
it,
They're
yeah.
desperately
That's
now
different.
trying to get their grips in some place because so many places are banning them.
Okay.
That they're trying to get their hooks in, because once you say yes to one. Unless you've got zoning in place, you don't have a legal recourse to keep out the huge ones.
And we may very well come to just say no, yes, but
I mean,
the,
Cornell has a whole bunch. I mean, even in chemistry, they had
but see, that's
whole rooms that were just.
correct. And that's the concern, is if we need to write it in a way. That doesn't prevent, for example, like Trident Mutual Insurance from having a server room in their building, right? Cause they, you know, I'm sure the insurance company, I'm sure they have a data center in there. Right, so you need to define what these are. And we're not trying to present, you know, so if it's part of a regular business. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but you know.
But you said we don't have any zoning, so they can't put it in right now because it isn't in the zoning.
Now, their argument was that they could put it in because we have nothing saying that we can't.
Right,
Oh.
so that's why the
We put a
moratorium
moratorium
came.
in and he tried to argue that we were turning him down for political reasons or social
Oh, yeah.
reasons or racial reasons. He had a whole
So
litany of
another
reasons.
thing to consider in that is that for the, I mean, the high electricity uses in
Yeah.
part to run them,
The-
but in part to keep them cool.
His
Keeping
argument,
them
right,
cool is very difficult. And people are really gonna be looking to use water for that.
correct.
Yes.
Well, and in fact, I think he was talking about using water,
He
like the
was.
one that was planning going in was looking at water cooled.
And he said it was quieter, he had a whole.
Well,
shtick
water
about
cooled
it.
is quieter, but it is using water.
Right,
That he's
And-
gonna
and so
take
it's-
out of somewhere and put somewhere.
Or circulate, yeah,
And,
right.
yeah, I see big problems with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
So the,
we could put zoning around the amount of water they can use,
can we?
And where they can put it. That they
where they
can't
can
just,
put it, but also the amount of water draw, can't they?
you should be able to, yeah.
You can use no water. And you can't use electricity from the grid and you can't have generators.
You know, where's your enforcement coming from? You can't enforce me putting as much power on my own house to power my own server
But you're
farm
limited to the grid.
to the grid, yes, but there's no way they can enforce it. If I put a big greenhouse on mine, you can't, nobody's enforcing that.
Yeah, isn't that how they used to find grow houses, cause you know, the amount of power they would draw?
Yeah, but you could have legitimate greenhouse uses.
You could, you could, absolutely.
So that's where we need to make sure that the.
And I think the reason, so in general, if a use is not mentioned in zoning, it's not allowed. However, in this case, he was arguing that it was a service business.
that's
So,
right, he
you know,
came in front of zoning, so
yeah,
we got
yeah.
a taste of him.
Yeah, right, he was
Right.
arguing that it was, he was arguing that it was a service business, which is allowed by zoning, right? Not, you know, it's, you know, so it's. So that's why we have to do something about defining these, but. Cause he was, right, that was his primary.
That was
argument,
his argument,
Yeah.
he had a big thing about it, yeah,
That he's, and so as a service business, we had no right to
to deny
regulate
the,
it.
But
to
the-
deny it.
At the end of the day, it's not about the person or the,
Yep,
that, thing.
absolutely
It's-
right.
it's really about what's the future for Dryden for anybody and.
That's
brings-
absolutely right, but my point is that his argument could be used by others, right? So that's why the moratorium was put in place, was because he was arguing that it was something that was allowed by our zoning
Right,
and not.
the department
Right,
had denied the permit,
Right.
and then he came to you guys and he came to us
right,
to say, to dispute the denial of the permit.
right. And so the idea is to define what these things are so that they're covered,
Right,
whether we want them or not,
Which
whether
is
they're allowed or
definitions.
not, that's, you know,
right,
But
and
they're
service
defined.
business is very badly defined in the code,
It
which
is.
is why
is.
definitions will be
that's
a
absolutely
thing
right.
to tackle, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so,
our charge was to make a recommendation to the town
correct.
board.
What is the end time of the moratorium?
Well, it was an 18-month moratorium.
To the end of this year.
It's been, I think it's got about a year left. I think it's been about
I
6
think
months.
he's gone mute, he has.
Well, and I'm not
Yeah,
so worried
yeah,
about
whatever,
him
yeah.
specifically, but
Yeah.
I think we have time. But that's why this is in phase one, right, is because we have some time. But I think, you know, our position on these is we generally don't want them. But I don't wanna. We don't wanna do this in a way that prevents other legitimate. Other types of business that may fall under that same definition. We just need to be careful how we
What
define it.
if you work it backwards? It's really about the environmental impact of these types of facilities.
Yep,
So what are those environmental impacts that are the concerns? And then that's what you're putting the
power
language
draw
around.
and water usage are the primary.
But also, if you don't want them,
and
you have to
noise.
make sure you've defined them well enough so
Yes.
that they don't get that end round, which
Right.
is what he was doing.
Because if let's say I have a pizza shop. And I have a big garage in the back. And I see it, Brad, just a second. And I have a big space in the back. If I start putting in racks of servers. You know what I mean? How's, you know, I'm gonna be limited by the power
You can
coming to
draw.
the building, right? But, you know, if I have 400 amp service or something, I'm gonna be limited to that. But you know, there's those kind of ways is, you know, how do you regulate that as a secondary
Can't
use
you
kind
put
of thing?
those same restrictions on any business regardless of the business?
Good.
It's like,
Possibly.
no business should be doing this kind of water draw, no business should be, I don't know, I'm.
Well,
The statutes are written so that, the data center, needs to serve the premises, so the
Right.
pizza shop wouldn't be using the data
that's
center.
true.
So they wouldn't be able to have.
Right, but when you talk about power usage, I'll give you an example of high power usage. Is the bed frame company.
Yep.
That's a manufacturing plant, that has they use a very large amount of power,
Yeah, they powder coat a lot of stuff.
right?
Mhm.
Right, well, and all their heating equipment and melting, it's all electric,
All that.
right? That facility draws a very large amount of power. But it's a manufacturing plant, they're providing jobs,
It's probably not that 300.
and it's in the
watts per
industrial,
square
you know, it's in
foot.
an industrial zone, you know, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, Brad, you wanted to say something.
Oh, yeah. I think, I mean, I'm not in favor of the large scale, gigantic, power consuming, you know, self-standing, you know, single purpose, data mining centers that you have a lot of negative, aspects, I think, but how about, you know, bringing in, we could keep discussing it, but how about having Nan be part of that? How about the town attorney even helping out with language, to facilitate those smaller entities that need it for just running their businesses. It's an accessory to their existing businesses or proposed business, not a standalone. And you know, I'm sure we can, you know, between Nan and our group and the town attorney even, and we could craft something that makes sense and is proportionate and also protecting the environment, and for that matter, frankly, you know, residents and businesses of the town. Um, you know, we're charged with that as well, I think, but the environment and existing residents and businesses.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree.
So it comes down to language. I'm just saying that there must be a way to write something that is very defendable and responsive to the challenge.
Right.
Did you know that the village of Freeville already has a data mining facility?
Oh, yeah, where?
I don't know, I think it's on Main Street. Yeah. miles
I'm
apart.
sorry, what was that, Gina?
There is already a data mining facility in the village of Freeville.
Hmm.
It was kind of.
Standalone?
Yeah.
They didn't come for a building permit.
Well, that would have been covered under, if they're in the village, it would have been under it would have been the village board and the village planning board that would address that.
They didn't know about it.
Oh, they didn't know, they just did it, somebody just did it in an existing building.
Mhm.
Oh, nice.
It happens.
Yeah, that
That's
happens.
where the teeth come in.
Mhm.
So anyway, I think where we're gonna go with this, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but we kind of had said something before about, you know, some light industrial, but I think the direction to Nan is gonna be, we generally don't want these, but we want to be able to control them in a way that, you know, we allow them for legitimate or not legitimate. Ancillary use or you know, small facilities in the light industrial with a limited number, I think is.
I think if we just said we'll allow one 5,000 square foot data center, and it needs to be in the industrial.
Yeah, and there's no land available in the industrial right
So
now.
You know, there are legitimate uses for these
Yeah,
things.
there are.
Companies that build small facilities and
Yeah.
they call it co-location and.
Yeah.
Owners can bring their service
Yeah.
stuff, rack,
Mhm.
plug them in and.
All
Virtually
right.
every business uses them now, so we can have one.
So I think this is one that we have a good recommend, you know, we can guide Nan on what we want to do with
Yeah.
it, right? All right, so that's everything we had on the agenda for
What
tonight.
about backup power?
It's part of what we can define.
Says battery storage.
It's a good point.
But Craig, you know, don't come after my propane standby generator.
They'll come after it.
But
Yeah,
they,
I want to.
Filling water.
Yeah. they,
Well, you got natural gas in most of them.
I don't have natural gas.
No, in
Either.
the mixed use.
Yeah.
Mixed use.
Are you adjourning?
So, next,
Feels like we should wait.
next
Just
meeting,
in my backyard.
next meeting of this group is April 3rd. Oh, that's something I had to bring up. April 3rd, I will not be here. I'm gonna be at the New York State. No, April 3rd,
Not April 3rd,
not April 3rd. That's
You're going to Rotary.
April 6th.
April 3rd is a Thursday night. I will be in Albany.
You're going to Rotary.
I'm going to the Rotary Conference. That's right.
That's right, you're driving from one to the other.
I'm driving from one to the other.
April
That's right.
3rd is a tough day for me too.
April 3rd is I will be in Albany. So what do we want to do about the April meeting?
Is the next week? The next, or is that when you have planning board meetings?
No, ours is the 4th. The following week, we could meet here. We wouldn't have that space, but we could meet here. The only issue is Ray wouldn't be available, right? Because it's a town board night. The following Thursday would be a town board night.
Should be the last week of March,
That's the planning board.
I
meeting.
That's the planning board meeting. Yeah.
sorry.
I mean, does the 2nd April, does Wednesday night work for people?
That's zoning board meeting.
That's zoning board meeting. The first Wednesday is the,
No, the first Tuesday.
first Tuesday.
So if it's the Wednesday, that could, yeah, the second. would
Wednesday?
work. Yeah.
I think that's the ag council.
Is it,
I mean, but we don't meet every time, so
is it the first Wednesday?
it's the first Wednesday. Pretty sure.
Do you know what the agenda is for planning board? For March? So I'm seeing anyone.
I think we're gonna have some projects, right?
You know, a couple public hearings this week,
Sounds like we got a lot
or
of
next week.
zoning to do.
Yeah, I mean, just because I'm not here doesn't mean you can't meet. This is somebody else has
That's
to
true. I could probably zoom it.
run the meeting. And actually, I could probably zoom in.
Yeah, I'd probably have to zoom.
Actually, if I went to Albany a little earlier than I was planning, I could zoom in.
Your meeting Friday,
The Rotary stuff doesn't start until Friday morning.
right?
I'm just driving up Thursday night because I don't want, the thing starts at 8 o'clock
Yeah.
Friday morning and I don't want to get up at 3:30 in the morning to drive to Albany. But yeah, let's keep it on the 3rd. I can zoom in. And can you zoom in, Craig?
Yeah. I could probably
Yes.
zoom in.
We'll just need to make sure we have enough people in the room here, but.
Well, you're not making policy, so.
Oh, actually, in that one, we're not gonna be running on anything, right? So,
Everyone can be busy.
yeah, yeah, people can go by Zoom.
votes.
And any of you, if you wanna join by Zoom, you can. It's just in order for us to vote on anything, we have to have at least four members in the room.
So next meeting, the agenda will be
It's one item, it's
start working on the list.
it's start working on the list. And reviewing the, looking at the documents, the recommendation in the documents and some of the comments that we've gotten from like housing and whatnot, and coming up with a list for school. We're not gonna go through the whole document. We want to focus on the things that are on the list for phase 1.
But in the meantime, you're gonna send out.
In the meantime,
Everyone
I'm gonna
gets a
send
fresh
everybody a fresh package of all the documents so that you all have everything you need, and hopefully we won't have a repeat of what I did tonight. Sorry about that with the documents. But
With new dates,
what's that?
with new dates on the documents.
New dates.
I think there was a lot of confusion on the dates of the documents.
Oh, yeah, yes,
Yeah, in the meeting.
Yes. Thank you very much. I know zoning is a really exciting topic. So. It's important for you, it is.
It's important.
Good night.
Good night, Brad.
Joy, did you turn off the recording?
It's only just a minor change, CAC.
No, but I will. Let's see.
I could do it, it's fine.